Hi, my name is Haley Earls. I have been observing Andrea Watson at Liberty High School. She teaches English 9 Gate and 10 CP. So far, I have completed 5 full days of fieldwork observation in her class. The most utilized technique that I've seen in her class thus far are various methods of scaffolding. There are so many different methods of instruction that can be used in an English class, and Mrs. Watson uses scaffolding techniques throughout any given lesson, no matter how she's teaching for the day. There is scaffolding embedded in what she's teaching and how she's teaching it before the students go on to complete the assignments on their own. One day in particular, Mrs. Watson gave the students a PowerPoint presentation entitled Literary Paragraphs for Short Stories. The PowerPoint explained the structure of the body paragraphs that the students will be writing in their essays about short stories, a given short story they've read, I guess. And one strategy that I really enjoyed when I was watching Miss Watson give this presentation was that she never directly read from the PowerPoint. Not at all. She just stated the key points that were on the PowerPoint in her own words. She referred to examples, to assignments that the students have already completed, and stories they have read already, which was really engaging to students and helped them also make connections to activities and assignments they've already completed. And it also helped that they were listening to an animated teacher guide them in an activity they are soon going to complete. Scaffolding was utilized in this lesson in the way that Mrs. Watson guided the students by explaining how they will construct their body paragraphs with the use of examples from other stories they've read. So she didn't just tell the students, you read this story, this is what you should be writing about, this is what your topic sentence should look like. She brought in examples. So we read this short story a few weeks ago. We're not writing on this short story, but if we were to be, we would pick the setting from the story and explain how the setting enhances the story, why, give examples. So that was a method of scaffolding that was clear. Scaffolding was utilized also on this day in a handout that Mrs. Watson gave to the students. So after her PowerPoint, she handed out, it was a template of what their body paragraph should look like. So it had a space for topic sentence, the students fill in their topic sentence. Concrete details, examples, what instance of conflict from the story the students will use in their paragraph. So that was very helpful for students. And Mrs. Watson went over this handout as a class, which was helpful. I mean, it was a layout of what their body paragraph should look like, so there's no question as to where my topic sentence should go or where my example or my concrete detail should go. On this day, she had the students choose the same literary element for this body paragraph in particular. So in this case, it was conflict. So she had the students choose an instance of conflict in the short story that they all read together. But this means that the students will virtually all have a different instance of conflict that they are discussing. So they're not all writing about the one instance of conflict in the short story, which helps Mrs. Watson guide the entire class to a greater extent, having the ability to explain the task in a more in-depth manner. Both of these scaffolding techniques were so helpful for students that I saw, especially any student who seemed to be struggling or unsure of what to do. During another day, Mrs. Watson utilized scaffolding as she read a story aloud to her 10 CP classes. So throughout the reading, she would pause a lot to explain words or aspects of the story. She drew connections to real-world examples that the students can relate to. She asked questions that evoked reading comprehension and analysis of the story. I really enjoyed this. This was incredible seeing. It was sometimes simple too. Why did she use this word? Why is this word used? What do you think that means? What could that mean later? She pointed out instances of foreshadowing that she saw that she knew would come. And she told the students after the reading of the story was completed, when the students were completing their annotations, that what I was doing when I was reading the story, when I was pausing, when I was asking questions, when I was pointing out words or phrases, that's what you should be doing in your annotation. So that was a great use of scaffolding by showing the students, look, this is what I'm doing. We're all doing this together. I'm showing you exactly what your annotations of the story should look like when you're doing those once we finish reading the story. This helps the students understand key aspects of the story and identify literary elements within the story, which helped with their annotations immensely. On the same day, Mrs. Watson played a voice recording of a story that was read aloud to her 9-gate classes, and she played this voice recording twice. So the first time, she just had the students read along. After the first time this recording was played, she instructed the students to circle words that they were unfamiliar with and look these words up on their phones and then write the definitions next to the words in the story so they knew what the word meant during the second time that the story was read. So she did this because the short story was particularly lengthy and it was a little confusing. So this method of scaffolding was very helpful in promoting comprehension of the story. And then when I was observing this past Friday, Mrs. Watson utilized scaffolding as she explained and prepared her students for the Socratic seminar that will take place this coming week, which was so helpful for the students. They were able to know exactly what's going to happen during the seminar. Mrs. Watson explained exactly what will happen the whole time. The students know what to expect. They know what to prepare for. She told the students that she pointed out 3 questions that were in their short story packet. And she said these topics are what are going to be discussed in the seminar. Know these topics. She instructed the students to take Cornell notes on these topics so that they are prepared and there's no question as to what they need to talk about during the seminar, which is so helpful because especially for freshmen in her 9-gate classes, I think that there could be, especially for their first Socratic seminar, not so much participation. Students might be a little nervous or not know what they should say. Is that wrong? Is that stupid? Should I say it? So that was totally helpful. The students are left with no questions as to what will happen. And so the students are able to participate in the seminar that takes place next week. These various methods of scaffolding that I have seen Ms. Watson use throughout the instruction I've observed were all outlined in the audio recording we listened to in week 3 that was entitled Deconstructing the Lesson. Mrs. Watson scaffolds difficult texts by introducing content with text or other examples that the students already know, which is what she did, which I mentioned earlier, giving them a foundation in the context. She also uses repeated reads, which is what she did with the short story that was a little long and confusing. This allows students to process what they have read before reading the story a second time. Those were both key points in that recording that we listened to. And these techniques also emphasize the growth mindset that was also introduced to us in week 3. The growth mindset allows students to take more risks in learning and attack given challenges, such as, writing an essay or a Socratic seminar, which is unfamiliar to a lot of the students. These students, like Ms. Watson's students, they take opportunities presented to them to grow in knowledge and comprehension of the subject matter. So that's what I've seen thus far in Mrs. Watson's class. Everything has been so helpful for students. It's so helpful for me to see scaffolding utilized effectively in instruction, and it's great to see students comprehending and understanding and wanting to participate and learn more. So that's what I've learned thus far.